Welcome to White Pill Radio, the roughly every other episode version of Theology on Air, which is an outgrowth of Theology by the Pint, which is an awesome ministry in Houston you should be acquainted with. You should come to our events. Go to our website, theologybythepint.org. Go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to the podcast, all that stuff, because we get together monthly around craft beer and talk about interesting ethical, theological, political, social conversations with a beer in hand. So who wouldn't want to be a part of that? So do check out theologybythepint.org to learn more. Just today, we released our first ever online combo first word Theology by the Pint debate series. We did that recorded last night on the death penalty, so you might find that interesting. So
it should be titled Heads and Freezers. That was probably the phrase that got said the most.
Absolutely. It's the Heads and Freezers standard. Everybody knows it. It's an acceptable standard by which someone merits the death penalty, but that's for another day. Anyway, White Pill Radio, because we need extra time to talk about all of the important things, that are going on in the world. This is ultimately hopeful,
applied theology,
post-apologetic, applied theology. I never remember that, and where we like to say that this is blessed talk, but not happy talk. So we do. Thank you for listening in and joining us today. I'm Evan McClanahan. I'm the pastor over at First Lutheran, and we have a full house today. So we have Sarah.
Hey, Sarah Stone Ulrich. I'm the executive director for Theology by the Pint. Glad to be back. I was sad not to be here last week, but I'm going to make up for lost time.
And did I say the website enough?
I think you did. Theologybythepint.org, that website?
That was one.
Okay, yeah.
Hey, and over here on the left, I'm Cody
On the
Pogue.
left. I see what you did there.
It's there right, but it's my left. Cody Pogue. I teach at a local college here in Houston, and you can find me on TikTok, CodyPogue.
I'm James Yerby. I am an engineer here in Houston and just a man about town.
A man about town who goes to my church and is a friend of ours who we discovered has kind of lefty leanings. So I told him he had to come in and argue with you.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Good deal. I don't want to argue with an engineer. That doesn't sound like anything.
We're not going to argue about engineering.
I'm going to be outsmarted 3 different ways.
No.
I thought it might be interesting to tee off today's conversation, picking up where last week's left off. If people listened, you had Adam Ellwanger, is that how you say it?
Ellwanger, yeah.
Ellwanger, and Matt Barnes were here, and y'all got into a lot of interesting conversations, but it ended on one that got a little feisty. If people listened, some of us liked it, some people didn't. I actually thought it was super thought-provoking because you were talking about the nominee for Senate. Is it Senate or for Congress? Senate, yeah. James Talarico. He beat out Jasmine Crockett in the midterms, and he's a seminary student who likes to preach and talk about the Bible and how it connects with politics. And Evan said something along the lines of, because of the things on his platform, he is not a Christian in any meaningful way. And of course, Matt took issue with saying that he's not a Christian. And then they went back and forth and they had some sparring, which I found really thought-provoking. And I wish that I was here. And so now I'm just going to say what I wish I had said when I wasn't here, which is this. I think I agree maybe with Matt that, or I don't care about whether he is a Christian. I mean, I care in the way that I want everyone to be a Christian. I want everyone to surrender their lives to Jesus. But I don't need to decide if he's a Christian or not. I think that's between him and the Lord. He could be a Christian that's very confused about some things, and I hope that's the case. And of course, God is gracious and merciful to let us have all kinds of theological errors. Thank goodness. That's how any of us will get to heaven, as it were, right? Because he's gracious. What I care about when it comes to what my role is, and as a voter, as a fellow believer, is what his message is. And that's where what I would have said if I were here is his message is a mix of things, some of which I don't think are biblical. And in that way, I would put him in the same camp as a false teacher. And the Bible does talk about that a lot, about how we're supposed to be on guard for such things. And the reason I would put him in that camp is because he's taking the Bible and sometimes extra biblical things that he calls the Bible to justify things like abortion, trans ideology. I don't even actually take that much issue with him saying that God is non-binary, except that I know where he's going with it. Because, not Jesus is obviously not non-binary, he's a man, but God does possess qualities that are feminine and qualities that are masculine. I would never call him non-binary. He's God the Father. But he is spirit and he possesses both qualities. So we could even put that aside. But some of the other things that James Talarico says, I think are so wholly non-Christian that his message is, I think, dangerous. So that's what I would have said if I were here. I'm curious if you guys have any other thoughts. I know you have some thoughts, but do either of you?
I hate that I missed the last episode, so I don't know what y'all are talking about. But I haven't watched everything that Talarico says, but I've seen a lot of videos of him talking about how we need to love God and love our neighbor.
Mhm.
And some of it I've even found challenging from a Christian perspective, in that we should love Donald Trump, even if we're liberal, even if we're against his politics. We should still love him. We should love the Trump supporter. We should love the Republican, just as we love the Muslim or the person who's gay or the person who's transgender. And I think that's like right in line with what Christ taught. Love your enemies,
Mhm.
love your neighbors, even the ones who are the most against what you stand for. You have to love and pray for them, not in like a, well, I'll pray for, but really love and pray for them. I think that's Christ-like.
I do too. And I recently watched a YouTube clip that another liberal friend of mine sent me, and I find it challenging too. But let me ask you this. If we're to love, you listed Muslim. I think that's a great
Yes.
example. If a Muslim were using Muslim ideology to platform policies you absolutely disagreed with, could you say something like, I'm going to love this person, I'm going to pray for this person, but I am not going to vote for this person, and I'm going to make sure people know that these are policies that are antithetical to what I believe? Can you call that out? The messaging?
I mean, I think I would vote against any policies that I disagree with.
And you
So,
do?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Regardless of whether they're Muslim or Christian or anything, if I disagree with it, I would vote against it. So.
And what if a Christian, let's just say it's not James Talarico, but there was a Christian that got up in front of a bunch of people and said, the Bible says, let's think of something we could all agree with, like human trafficking is great. I mean, no one would ever say that, but
Right.
just, I'm trying to think of something so egregious.
Right.
You would say, like, that is not a Christian thing to say, right? Even you
Right.
can love that person and still call it out.
Certainly.
I think
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Well,
Which we should hopefully also do about Donald Trump, by the way, because
Right.
he says a lot of crazy-ish.
yeah, but there are like degrees.
Sure.
So, and that was what I think Matt was trying to say. I mean, not that he's here, so I don't want to say what he was saying, but I got the impression that it was like, well, when someone on the left does something that you don't think is Christian, you use Christianity to go after them, but you don't do
Yeah.
the same on the right. And I mean, this comes up in our conversations at Theology by the Pint all the time. Like,
Yeah.
why don't we talk about what the Bible talks about, which is money? So we're gonna have a whole event in May about like a Christian's relationship to money, because the Bible says more about money than sex. Well, guess why the Bible says more about money than homosexuality? Because nobody was defending homosexuality in the first century. Nobody. Didn't need to be said. There was homosexual practices among the Romans, and so Paul addresses various things like that. So this argument that it's not said in the Bible, and so we have free course to reinterpret it, is just bad logic. It's bad theology. It's bad Bible interpretation. But more to the point, there's a bigger issue here, which is, can anyone ever say that someone is not a Christian ever? Can we do that? Yes or no? I wanted that question answered first. And the answer to that is, of course, we can say that.
We would say that about our atheist. If you knew someone that was an atheist and they said,
I mean,
I'm
even
not.
a self-described Christian.
Ooh.
Like a Mormon.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. So yes, we can do that. We can draw boundaries around, or if somebody denies the, like a Jehovah's Witness, or a classic Unitarian, can we say, if they deny the Trinity, they are not a Christian? Yes, we can. So,
But to what end? Because I'm with you. I think we could say that. I would say that about
for clarity, to save souls, to keep, to evangelize people who are in a Unitarian group that do not possess the full truth. I mean, the truth demands that we say that.
Yeah, to defend right doctrine. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're sort of in that tension between you shall know them by their works and work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, right? And that's, I think that's a question that the Christian community has probably been wrestling with since,
ever.
Jesus was walking on the earth up until this day, and will likely continue to do so for as long as we are on this earth.
But let's say it's not like a theological question like the divinity of Christ. Okay, let's talk about ethics. So are there ethical stances that a self-described Christian can take that are so egregious to Christian theology that they place one out that are disqualifying? And I think the answer to that is yes. Because I think at some point, to wholly reject the law of God is to essentially act as God. It's to say, I know better than you, that this thing is okay, and when God says that it's wrong. And so to me, it's an act of rebellion against God. And if
would like abortion be an example of that? Because it's murder?
I think so, yes. And that was why I asked if abortion was murder, because that was my example. And like you were saying, for example, Christianity says to love our neighbor, our unborn neighbor.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm gonna go with what I think the guy last week said a little bit more. I'm not as big of a fan of this because I think some things aren't as clear. The Trinity, for example, I know that that's pretty settled doctrine for the last 1800 years, but I don't know that it's clear in the Bible. At no point in the Bible does it explicitly say the Trinity.
Out. Yeah.
Right. So some of these doctrines, somebody, I don't know that I would deny them Christian status because of that. Even abortion, some of these other issues, right? I think if someone considers themselves a follower of Christ, then they truly mean that. I don't think I have a right to say, well, your doctrine is so bad. And I would honestly be scared to. I don't have enough confidence in myself to say, you're so wrong, because what if I'm wrong? So.
Yeah, that's a kind of like, I think this is the right word, like epistemic humility, where, we basically say, well, what we can never know. We can never be sure. But like, I think we can be sure. And I think there's essentially like a lack of confidence within Christianity that I think ends up kind of crippling us. And so then when someone like Talarico comes along and he says, I'm a Christian, I've been to seminary, like I've studied this. I mean, people call him a Bible scholar.
I know.
Like, okay. I know. Do you know how many people I know with MDivs that are like morons? Okay, they don't know anything. Okay, it's not that hard to get an MDiv, especially at a liberal school. I know. I got one. It wasn't hard. College was probably 4 times harder than getting my MDiv. So it's not like anything I brag about. Because if you kind of do the social justice mantra, they give you the degree. Okay, because that's what they teach at those schools. So anyway, like for him to rely on that though. That is, I think, why he's a troublesome character.
Yes, I think there's a smarmy quality there of using that to peddle ideologies that I think are harmful.
I mean, even Nancy Pelosi is like, well, yeah, I'm a Catholic, and I'm like, as a Catholic, I'm like pro-life, but like everything she did her entire career was to promote abortion. You know? Now, I think that's inconsistent, but she didn't actually say my faith teaches that abortion is okay.
Yeah.
She was like, well, hey, that's private and I'm public and I'm a public servant and I represent the people and they're okay with abortion. Like he is literally saying things like we've heard this of people in our own circle doing this ministry, that like certain things are holy and good. God says that homosexual behavior is good, that should be celebrated. And I just disagree with that. I mean, people can disagree with me, but
Don't worry, they do.
Yeah.
But okay, when I asked to what end, I think you're right that we can say if someone is not Christian because, at some point they just go too far from what God teaches and expects and obedience and all of that. But the reason why I'm hesitant to do it isn't just because I'm not the arbiter of such things, but because that's not what's demanded of me as a voter. And this is kind of what Adam was saying last week, is to take what they're saying and assess, do I think that's true and good? And that's something that I want, in our Senate, and it's not. And then to use scripture as a like blunt force tool to sort of convince people that those things are right is extra gross. Yeah, I'm fumbling over my words. James, were you going to say something or no? I thought maybe I saw you.
I was just going to say that I actually really like the point you made about Nancy Pelosi, and that I think there can be a healthy distinction between personal belief in a religious context and then also what you believe is acceptable in a pluralistic democratic society as a legislature. Yeah. I don't know that that's really what Talarico is doing here, as he's talked so prevalently and heavily about his belief that orthodoxy supports some of these positions. But I do think that's an important distinction that we can make in this arena.
Let me ask you an even more controversial question. Is he married?
Who, Talarico?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I don't think so.
No, isn't that so there's a lot of speculation about, here's a guy in his, I don't know, late 30s. It's okay. I mean, no judgment from my end, but would it matter if he was gay or not? I mean, there's certainly speculation that he may be.
It would probably matter in whether or not he's going to get elected in Texas.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so is there a certain kind of cynicism then in not being cautious, honest about that. For example, Barack Obama ran on, traditional marriage. And then the moment he gets elected, all of a sudden he's for gay marriage. I mean, it might have swung the election the other way. Is that just politics? Is that cynical? Didn't Obama owe something to the gay community to take a brave stand, for same-sex marriage before the election, put that on the line so the American people could kind of weigh and measure.
Hey guys, Sarah Stone here. Sorry to interrupt what I'm sure is a riveting podcast episode, but Theology by the Pint needs your help to continue providing these podcasts, offering our in-person events, and growing so we can bring thoughtful conversation and the hope of the gospel to a world that's increasingly walking away from church and from faith. Now that we're a 501c3 nonprofit, all donations are tax deductible, so we've crunched the numbers, and if each listener of this episode gave just $1 for each episode you listen to, we'd put a huge dent in our annual budget. So consider giving today. Go to theologybythepint.org/give and click the link to donate. Thanks so much. And now back to our show.
It was like 3 years later before he evolved on that issue.
Okay, fair.
So there was more time.
Okay.
Yes.
It wasn't like January 21st, 2009.
But when he ran, he ran on civil unions. So he did want something like marriage, just not calling it marriage. So
all right.
It's a good distinction.
Yeah. I'm curious for y'all, because this is where I see, this is a criticism I've always made of conservatives since Bush, is I believe in a strict separation of church and state, both to protect the church and protect the state. But one thing is, if we are going to mix religion and politics, then suddenly it's mixed, right? So that means that, yes, your version of Christianity is in charge right now, but later on, the other version of Christianity is going to be in charge. And I would argue that that means that the best thing is to just not bring them together in the first place, because otherwise the voters get to choose what it means to be a Christian. Whoever gets the most votes on, because the church is mixed up with the state. So
this is exactly what we talked about at our last event, by the way. You should check it out on our YouTube channel. It was about, should America be a Christian nation?
Yeah.
Anyway, we don't have to keep talking this to death. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in, and I think I've done that. But Cody, why don't you tell us about your article?
Okay. So, well, on the same notion, so Donald Trump created a Religious Liberty Commission, and he brought a lot of people on there. And I'm not really sure who this person is. Carrie Prejean Bowler. Apparently, she was in beauty pageants when she was younger, and she was a Christian who was against same-sex marriage, so she got canceled on the internet. And so now she's on this commission, and it's chaired by Dan Patrick and Paula White. And so she agrees with a lot of things, but she disagrees on Israel and Palestine. She thinks that as Christians, we should not support Israel bombing children. But Dan Patrick and Paula White believe that as Christians, we must support the modern state of Israel, because those are God's people. And so she spoke out, and they said that you can't post about this or talk about this, or you're going to be kicked off this committee. And so she did, and she got kicked off. And now she says she feels just as much canceled by the Trump administration and these people as she did by the online mob 10 years ago or whenever. So
it's a shame.
What was it you were just saying about mixing politics and religion, and then the people who got the most votes started to define orthodoxy?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
There's a lot going on that front. I mean, for example, Joe Kent just left the administration, and I believe he's Catholic. He's speaking at a Catholics for Catholics, which is a kind of a non-profit that is an advocacy group in DC, conference. Like, he's immediately picking up all these like speaking gigs, which is kind of curious. Now, he said he left the administration over Israel, or Israel's influence, but it's hard to say, what is true. It could have been a personal thing and whatever. And he was given the opportunity to resign, but he was really fired. Who knows? So I would say that, first of all, like, Trump's religious discernment is horrible.
Yes.
Paula White is a disaster, and she's a false teacher. I mean, might as well put, I don't know, Joel Osteen in charge.
So is she a Christian?
Oh.
I think you can make a strong case she is not. In any, I mean,
at least he's consistent, folks.
I'd agree.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people in the evangelical space that I think reject core tenets of Christianity. I mean, and I think in our group chat, I ended up saying, if Joel Osteen were running for Senate, I would make similar critiques of him. That he violates the principles of the gospel like every day. He refuses to preach about sin or repentance or anything like that. So the Israel situation is interesting because some of like her criticisms I agree with. I mean, I'm going to even like, I'm not on the Tucker Carlson like train, but one of the things that he did say was that some of these like anti-Semitism laws are written so broadly that they really are a problem, and we talked about this maybe a year ago because there are examples where, like, for example, there was this like federal law which said something like, any anti-Semitism on a college campus, blah, blah, blah. And then it defined anti-Semitism by linking to like the ADL, or it was like a pro-Jewish website. Right. And well, like you can modify a website tomorrow, like it's not we need a firm understanding of what anti-Semitism is. And so we're still living through this where if you criticize the nation of Israel, you're anti-Semitic. Yeah. If you say that
we don't think we should be supporting them militarily or something, that you're anti-Semitic, which of course,
which is silly. Things.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because like the Semitic people are like the entire Middle East as well. So, so I do think there's a major problem within the evangelical church in our relationship to Israel. It's kind of sorting itself out, though, if I'm being honest. I mean, support for Israel among the young is like non-existent, even among conservatives. So I think this was one of Charlie Kirk's big issues. I don't think Israel killed him as a result. But
next up, Candace Owens.
Yeah. Okay. But I do think that even he was like realizing, hey, like there are limits to our indefinite support of Israel. But a lot of it comes back to the dispensationalism and premillennialism and all these like kooky beliefs that, the nation state of Israel has any significance. We're going on 80 years. We're going on 80 years of the nation state of Israel, 2 generations. So all of that just needs to like die. Like, I just don't think there's any significance.
All of what needs to die? That ideology.
All of that theology.
Yes.
All of that theology. Yes. People live, but it's a terrible idea.
Well, I think you're right. With the
Stop agreeing with me. You're supposed to be arguing.
Sorry. I'm really a centrist.
That's what every progressive says.
Well, I guess we can wait till later articles to judge.
Yeah.
I think with the support for the state of Israel collapsing among the youth, like this is going to cycle out, honestly, of American Christianity, probably.
Yeah. So we're all against Paula White? And our own lieutenant governor, is he like a pro-Israel evangelical?
Very much
or what?
so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Did anybody catch the Tucker interview with Mike Huckabee?
I did.
I thought that was actually pretty interesting. I thought they both had really good wins in that debate.
I also thought they were both obnoxious at some points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think, again, I think Tucker Carlson's in a very weird space that I do not understand at all. But one of his, and it actually does feel like a genuinely anti-Semitic place, if I'm being honest, which is strange. But like he did ask, like, well, what is Israel? Like,
I know, should it be from the river to the river Euphrates? And he was like, well, maybe
it would be like half the Middle East, right? Yeah. If you go by like the
Lebanon,
Abrahamic,
Syria,
borders and stuff. So I do think it's quite possible that many power players in the modern nation state of Israel definitely see their borders, their legitimate borders, far beyond what they are now. And I'm not talking Gaza and West Bank. Right. I'm talking about Lebanon, Syria, Jordan.
Yeah.
So, and I think that is a problem. I mean,
well, it's almost like what they should be asking is, who is Israel? Which we did at a recent event, and you should check it out on our YouTube
Absolutely.
channel. I'm not going to be that obnoxious girl with everything, but man, we're talking about relevant things up in here, so you should come.
We are.
Anyway, you want to talk about Catholics?
Yeah, this is just a quick hit. This was a interesting, X post, I guess, which was just a graph. And it says this: in the mid-1970s, about half of Catholics indicated that they attended Mass nearly every week or more, because, a lot of churches hold Mass multiple times a week, so they might have gone several times a week. In 2024, that figure was 23%. So on the graph, it's like, Catholic Mass attendance goes, from way up high on the left to very low on the right. Meanwhile, evangelical attendance has gone up, slightly from, boy, this is printed really small. I don't know, about 42% to about 56% or so. So evangelical attendance and participation seems to have gone up since the 70s, and Catholic has gone down. It's probably that more people identify with being evangelical. People have left the mainline churches, and they're evangelical. A lot of people, say Erica Kirk, for example, grew up Catholic, but she identifies as if you will, as evangelicals.
Oh,
So,
does she?
Mhm.
I thought that was part of the whole conspiratorial talk, was that she's Catholic and Charlie was considering becoming Catholic, and not
No,
that that's why
I'm-
he died, but
no,
I didn't realize that.
I-
Didn't they have like a priest come to their house to
yeah,
pray when they?
yeah, before he left town, apparently. But
Mm.
I think she's kind of a. I don't mean
She's
this in
covering her bases, maybe.
yeah. I don't mean it in a bad way, but kind of like the cafeteria. Like, well, I'll,
Yeah.
a little,
A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
I don't see these two denominations in utter conflict, so I don't mind pulling from the best of those all. But I don't know what's going on with the Catholic Church. I'm guessing that to a degree, Vatican II so liberalized the Catholic Church. I think it became basically like, why bother? I think that's happened in the mainline churches as well. There's a liberalism that basically speaks about kindness and compassion and ecumenism and all it takes off kind of all the hard edges of like your denomination's core beliefs. And I think, unfortunately, what that communicates to people is,
Yeah, so I'm going to disagree. I would be interesting to see the evangelical churches that people are going to. What are the sizes of these churches? Because my guess would be, and I don't have data to show it, they're not going to the little Baptist church with 20 people down the road that's preaching sin. They're going to Lakewood Church. They're going to mega churches that have rock concerts every week, that have fancy shows, fancy lights, TV commercials, all of that sort of thing. And these places aren't the places, that are against the liberal orthodoxy. Not that they are liberal.
Yeah.
They're just, I don't know, whatever you call
They're
Joel
a show,
Osteen.
a performance.
Yeah, whatever you call that. That would be my guess. I could be wrong,
Yeah.
but
I think that the data is something like mega churches only make up like less than 2% of churches, but like 10% of Christians go to them or something. So it is in that way an outsized number of people that go there in that way. So certainly I think that a lot of people go to mega churches, but
right. So the Catholic and the main lines, they're still doing it like the 1500s. That's
sometimes actually in Latin. So
yes.
I mean, I think I have an even more boring take on all of this. And I think this probably just represents the general trend in death of cultural Christianity since the 70s. I mean, the Catholic Church is one that we know that lots of people are born into,
right?
Or at least certainly back
or we'll say
in
it
the 70s when this graph starts.
Yeah,
were born into, and then just as Christianity faded has faded, however you want to put that, as a cultural norm in our country.
Like clubhouse Christianity
kind
of
clubhouse
thing.
Christianity. I think that probably disproportionately affected
the
who
Catholics.
identifies as Catholics.
Yeah, that could be.
Well, I think that if you look though at like influence at like the Supreme Court, for example, I always am like amazed that like 6 of them are Catholic. And so I think we need to get Paula White on the Supreme Court.
Oh my gosh.
That's to get better representation.
You have found my liberal spot there.
There we go. There we go.
I've heard talk about Ted Cruz. I'm not sure what denomination he is, but
he's definitely evangelical. Yeah. Because he's all that pro-Israel stuff. Because of his interview with Tucker Carlson, so we know that. Yeah.
Goodness. Okay. Well, James, you brought actually a really interesting article. Tell us about this. I have thoughts.
Yeah, this is fascinating. This came across my desk this week, my internet desk, not my actual desk. So there have been in Florida specifically, this ProPublica article written, I think this week, about multiple women who have been drugged to Zoom court during active labor and forced to have C-sections by a judge because the doctors have deemed their labor to be progressing too riskily. And I don't know that this article calls it out super directly, but certainly implies that this is due to some of the new fetal personhood kind of legislation that has been passed in Florida. The hospitals feel like they have a legal liability at a certain point in a labor that may have been stalled or that the doctors assessed as starting to become risky. That they are going to be legally liable if either the baby, or specifically the baby, or the mother die or suffer an injury because the patient, in this case the laboring mother, wanted to go progress further in her natural childbirth before moving into a C-section.
So is the idea that this is sort of a horseshoe conservative politics eating itself kind of thing because they're so concerned about the baby that now they're like, sort of taking over at the very last minute in these moments? Because, I mean, this sounds terrible.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know that I even got that deep. I just read the article, said, this is gross and probably exactly the sort of thing Sarah would want to talk about on White Belt. So, yeah.
It is, but it also makes me think, I mean, they talk about it being Florida because of Florida's personhood, right? I mean, there's a lot in here about personhood. What's a person? If you, like I do, think that an unborn baby is a person with rights to life, I guess I thought that the implication of the article was, look at these crazy conservative laws. They've gotten so out of control that now they're forcing women to give birth before they're, ready to, which makes me think, does anyone think that these women are abortion minded and they're just hoping they'll go to 9 months and that there'll be some kind of complication and then they'll wait it out in the hours of labor? Like, no one's thinking that.
Yeah, I see where you're getting at. Yeah, I think this article is a very good example of what we've seen. We've seen it here in Texas. There've been lots of articles over the last couple of years since Texas increased its legislation about women who have bled out in the hospital parking lot, or have suffered horrific miscarriages or sepsis from miscarriage and all that because they were denied medical care because the hospitals were worried about their care being interpreted as an abortion here under new Texas legislation, or the Texas legislation that came on the books the last couple of years. I think this is another sort of in that category is where does the intersection of legislation that is a right to life for fetal personhood or whatever, where does that intersect with real proper medical care for the mother?
Well, not to play devil's advocate, but I mean,
we all know you, Evan.
Hospitals do have like ethics boards, right?
Yes, they do.
Okay, and so like sometimes an ethics board, as I understand it, will meet in a difficult situation, right? Where it's a dilemma where there's kind of not a good outcome either way. Like I mean, and they I don't know how often such an ethics board has to meet at a hospital. I don't know if it's like hourly or daily or monthly or what. But every now and then you're going to have a situation where it's like, well, this guy has a brain tumor, and it's like, well, we can try to save his life by getting it out, or but there's a risk, and they ask the surgeon.
And who has the power to say yes or no? Yeah.
So like, I'm wondering if that's all this is, which is basically, it's an ethics board of some kind got together. They asked the surgeon, hey, there's a woman. These are the complications. I mean, in her case, she had had C-sections in the past, and so. My mother, this was in the 70s, she had a C-section for my older brother. And so we were all going to ever be born with a C-section because back then, once you have a C-section, you can never have a natural birth again.
VBAC was not a thing back 30 years ago.
What is that?
Vaginal birth after cesarean.
Oh, okay. So, so I'm wondering if like there was just complications. And to be fair, I think they're trying to act in everyone's best interest. But when she's literally, now granted, being in labor can be a 24-hour thing or 36-hour thing. It's not necessarily a 1-hour thing.
And I do think, and now I'm going to be cynical because I've been in these spaces a couple times at least. I do think there is a stereotype that doesn't come from nowhere of surgeons that have tea times and vacations, and they're wanting to induce you because they're going to not be in town next week. So let's just like get this done sooner, or let's schedule it a little sooner. Or so the cynical part of me is like, was there really danger here? Or was this something where they were like, let's just wrap this up?
This is very inconvenient that you're still in labor 12 hours later. Yeah.
Well, I think that among the kind of holistic health crowd, MAHA or whatever we're going to call it, like there's a movement against C-sections, big time. There's a movement against
a movement against, meaning it's not optimal. Not that they're trying to have babies die or something.
There are all kinds of theories that C-section birth is actually really bad for kids.
It is. They don't they don't get things squeezed out. They don't go through all of the, we don't need to get gross on here.
I don't know the details. I've never really looked into it, but
flora and fauna and all kinds of things. Yes.
Yeah. So, I'm not on the doctor's side here per se. I don't really know. All I'm saying is that maybe they were trying to act in the child's best interest. And yes, I would have no doubt that changes in law they're always going to create some kind of perverse, possibly, incentives that could cause doctors to say, unfortunately, litigation and, the cost of like insurance, what do you call it? Malpractice is like, I'm sure doctors think about that all the time. Yeah. And I'm sure their bosses do too.
Yeah. So what's always confused me about this, so in Texas, since abortion has been illegal, we've had these situations because it says that they can only do an abortion if the woman's life is in imminent danger. And so that's led to situations where the doctor's like, your life is going to be in imminent danger in 3 days, so we're going to send you home for 2 days.
Do you actually have any evidence of that? Or is that just anecdotal?
There's been stories and that sort of thing. But with that, if I was the governor and I signed a bill that, as a byproduct, an unintended consequence caused that, I would immediately call a special session and be like, we need to fix this hole, right?
Fix some language
because that wasn't our goal with the policy.
Right.
But we've had like 2 legislative sessions since then, and it's not been touched. And so a lot of liberals say it's not about babies. That's just the excuse. It's about they hate women and want to hurt women. I don't think that's the case. But when they're not fixing these policies, it's like, is that the case? Why aren't they fixing this? Because if I really wanted abortion to be illegal, then these things I would be fixing, right?
Yeah.
And I don't understand why they don't.
I agree. If everything you said was true, I agree with you. I do know that there's been a lot of misinformation around the whole like ectopic pregnancy. A lot of people will say like, oh, well, women are dying because they had an ectopic pregnancy and no one would do anything about it. And then you go look at the actual numbers and stats and that's not happening. Right. There, as of last time this came up at one of our events, we had someone fact checking in real time that worked in the medical industry and there had been no ectopic pregnancies that were denied help, which is it's a DNC.
Yeah.
So I would want to know what the actual numbers are. Are there actually women bleeding out from something that the hospital knew about and was negligent about? Or is it the kind of thing where the woman was maybe too afraid to come in and she didn't come in time? I mean, there's so many questions.
Yeah.
Either way, if there's any kind of white pill to this, it's that reading this article forces you to feel so much compassion for both the baby and the mother. And especially as someone who's had 2 C-sections and waited so long. And both times my doctor's like, okay, we can give it another hour and that's it. Try. And then of course, no, it went to C-section. You feel for these folks. And I think that compassion is healthy. We recognize they're made in God's image, the baby and the mother. And so I hope this stops happening. This is terrible. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's all I got. Want to talk about drugs?
Yeah.
Okay. I read about this article a couple weeks ago, but then I wasn't on last week. This was in Wired magazine. And it's about these people that they're gonna set up, I think it's in North Carolina or South Carolina. They're gonna set up I just opened this up to realize there's nothing in here. Good thing I read the article.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. They're setting up basically kind of like a med spa kind of thing for people to come and take DMT. Interestingly enough, DMT is kind of like ayahuasca. It's a psychedelic drug, but they're using technology from anesthesiology to kind of titrate it just so that you can have a really cool trip without having all the like vomiting and nasty stuff that ayahuasca. People that go to the Amazon and have people chanting and waving sage around and they're puking in buckets and pooping their pants and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to have that anymore. You can go to the spa, you can take DMT and it's done all clinically and whatever, and you can have a really great trip. But the purpose of them doing this is because so many people that take DMT have really similar trips, really similar visions of seeing what they call them often entities, aliens, the Greys, not our friends Andy McKenzie Gray, but the Gray aliens. Sometimes there's different ways they refer to them, but they're always these beings that seem godlike, that have superior tech knowledge, that seem superior to them and seem very real. And so they're wanting to actually collect data, put together a documentary, put together all this data on these beings by having these people trip out and then record sessions with them. And I'm just I heard about it and then I read the article and I thought, am I the only person that's like, hey, if everybody that takes this drug has this interaction and they're seeing these quote entities that seem godlike, am I the only person that thinks they might not be aliens that can only visit you through the mind only when you're taking drugs? Or is it possible not to be that girl? Maybe there's something demonic happening here. And to that end, I'm shocked and also not shocked that people would want to say like, well, let's engage with them. Let's see what they have to teach us. This goes, I mean, you could read Bible stories about this way back in Genesis. And I will just say this is not me being all anti-drug and a prude and teetotaler, but I was like, well, what does the Bible have to say about this? And here are 3 verses I think apply to this. 1 Corinthians says, do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own. 1 Peter 5 says, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. That's all in one verse. This, I will just say it, and you guys can come at me if you want. I think when you take a trip like this for the purpose of, some people will call it ego dissolution. Some people talk about seeing like Mother Earth and all this kind of feminine energy. But the alien thing is the most common thing that happens. You see God or you see aliens. I'm putting quotes for those that are just listening. When you enter into that trip to visit with those beings, I think you are intentionally opening a doorway to a spiritual plane we ought not open it up to. And then lastly, 1 Thessalonians 5 says, so then let us not sleep as others do, but let us keep awake and be sober. For those who sleep, sleep at night, and those who get drunk are drunk at night. But since we belong to the day, this is not just meaning, day and night, right? It's a metaphor. Let us be sober, having put on the breastplate of faith and love and a helmet, the hope of salvation. Meaning, don't do the things in darkness that you ought not do. Be sober-minded. Don't open your mind up to presences of darkness, because they will talk to you. They will give you knowledge. They'll tempt you. The devil is like a roaring lion. And I don't think there's a demon under every rock, but I think there's a demon under every DMT. So that's I didn't have that line ready. I'm kind of proud of that.
I'm clipping that. Yeah.
What do you guys think? Let's go around and say if we've done psychedelics. Evan? No, I'm kidding.
No.
I'm kidding.
Never done any drugs. So.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Not missing out on anything. No interest. So
I'm joking about everybody admitting we don't have to do that. But
yeah, your job might be at risk if you do. So
yeah.
Do that. No, I agree. I don't understand the. Well, I kind of do. I mean, because think about like a Ouija board.
Yeah, same thing.
Or, consulting a psychic or something like that. That was in 1 Samuel, right? Where Saul goes to see the witch at Endor and all of that. So I think that people have a natural curiosity about sort of the other side, about, talking to the dead.
But they're not calling it the dead. They're calling it aliens.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's what they think. Well,
how are you so foolish to think that there's intelligent life elsewhere, and the only way they can connect with us is when we take this specific
They're
drug?
so technologically advanced.
Savvy.
That's the only.
But
They
we
come in through
have
your
to
mind.
take mind altering. Yeah, I mean, my question is, did none of these people see altered states? Like, we have so many sci-fi movies that are warnings of what happens when you do stuff like this, and it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I've never seen that movie, and I'm a big William Hurt fan, and I'm like kicking myself right now.
Tonight's the night, baby.
Not that I'm saying that Altered States was written as like some sort of moral
polemic.
But come on, folks.
Yeah, my take on it would be that in all likelihood, you do this drug and it's a hallucination, that you hallucinate and see things, and you kind of happen to see the same thing. And honestly, I'm a historian, not a psychologist, but if I was a psychologist, my ethics wouldn't say to give people the drugs. But if they're going to do it anyway, I would want to interview them and find out what's going on in their brain, because that's a natural experiment that's happening anyway. So
yeah. I guess yes. My thing is, if it's a natural thing, like for instance, when people have near-death experiences and they all see the tunnel of light, and then you're like, well, that's because, the oxygen is being deprived in the brain. And so, you get that tunneling. If you could explain it all scientifically, then what you're actually saying is we're going to create this space and interview you afterwards to find out what you learned from your own self.
Yes.
Which also, I feel like the Bible talks about, like, you are not your own God. You are not going to, I mean, you have, to use the words of Joel Osteen, everything you need, you have. I think having to take drugs to go deeper in and see something that seems like it's someone else, but it's really just your own mind, is its own kind of narcissism. Mm-hmm. I am of the mind that it's not just that, just because there are so many similarities. And when you hear them talk, you're like, it's like they're describing demons. I mean, if you've read the Bible. Anyway, either way, I think it's not a great idea. So don't go do it. Yeah. Save your money. If you want to spend that kind of money on enlightenment, you can give to theologybythepint.org /give. And you can come to our events and you can learn all kinds of things.
I mean, that's one of the main reasons I don't drink a lot. I mean, I'll have a beer every now and then, or buy a bottle of wine every now and then, or something like that. Or I have a beer at Theology by the Pint, which you should go to every month. But I, don't do drugs or anything like that. Never have been, and they're so expensive.
Like, of course, that would be your reason.
I'm just like,
you're
so
too cheap.
I'm way too cheap for that kind of stuff.
You're not wrong.
Somebody said the other day, though, because I was talking to some of the college students, and they were like, "Yeah, I can get a joint for $3.69." It's like $3.69.
Really specific.
That's really specific. Like, they don't round up to $5. Like, what is going on?
Or
I mean,
$4.
Are they charging tax? I mean, what is?
And $3.69. I thought we weren't using pennies anymore.
Well, I know. That's 4 pennies. So it was like a really weird thing to say. I was like, and they were like dead serious. Like they really meant it, And I'm like, where? Like, do you buy them online or something? I mean, what is happening?
Is that like the wholesale division price? Maybe. Like,
yeah. But I think
it's Costco.
I think. It is a good reason. Like, if nothing else, like there are stewardship reasons that Christians ought not to get tattoos.
I knew you were going to say that.
Did you?
Yeah, because we talked about it at the Vices event, and you said the same thing.
Yeah,
you were like, I don't know about biblically, but just don't use your money that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. The drug thing is interesting, but I don't know. I think you're right. They're just seeing demons. So
I'm glad we're all on the same. Well, except for Cody Page about that. Okay, what do you got next?
Well, this was just a quick one. This was from the New York Post, and it talks about how much money was spent on homeless services last year, and it's basically $81,000, which seems like a lot.
Per person.
Per person, yeah. So I'll just read it. New York City spent roughly $81,000 per person on homeless services last year, amounting to a whopping $368 million in total bills, a shocking new state report found. And that's tripled in about the last 6-7 years. It was about $28,000 per unsheltered homeless person in 2019. So I don't know. This is obviously something that is going on in almost every major American city. It's something that I, deal with a lot. You might say, I mean, I don't have a homeless ministry, but there are a lot of homeless services around our church. I think it facilitates homelessness. You can watch our debate we had, I don't know, maybe over a year ago now, right? On homelessness. And, people can offer their own thoughts, but it just seems like that's more than like America's median income, right? So like literally, now granted, there's a lot of grift in that $81,000. There's a lot of middlemen getting paid. There's a lot of theft going on at nonprofits run by executive directors who have $750,000 salaries and crap like that.
Jeez.
But still,
like if the average calling, Sarah.
What?
I said, you feel like you missed your calling?
Yeah, really. I should go into homeless ministry.
I mean, but if like the average salary in America is, I don't know, $60,000, like, and you're like kind of getting more than that allocated to you by being homeless, like something about that seems very unfair. Something about it seems wrong. And it also seems like no matter how much money we spend at these problems, they don't go away. And it almost seems like spending money on the problem is actually a problem in and of itself, because it actually encourages more homelessness. I think that's what you see in California. Ancillary, and I didn't include this in our group chat, but there was a video I stumbled across. It was a guy that was given like an apartment. He was a homeless guy, and he spray painted like graffiti, like all the walls, like he had totally ruined everything. He videotaped himself destroying all the cabinetry. He had been given 8 warnings to, stop destroying the property. And like his last warning, he was like, well, they're going to kick me out. So he threw a massive bender with all of his friends doing all kinds of drugs. If you've ever seen Breaking Bad, like in the season when Jesse like turns his aunt's house into a drug den, it was like that, like literally like that. And I'm just going, is this what we're spending $81,000 on? So I was going to say, I don't know the solution. I do know the solution, and it's probably jail for people that cannot be socialized. But that
Well,
probably
in
sounds
the
harsh.
in the debate that we did, you broke it down into 3 groups of people.
I did.
Yes, criminals that should go to jail, people that have mental issues that need to go to a place that can address their mental issues, and then those that are really sincerely down on their luck that need help, coming back out of the hole that they're in financially.
Yeah. So I don't know. What do y'all think? I don't want to put my more left of center friends on the spot, but New York's a left of center town.
You want to go first, or
yeah, sure. Certainly. One solution would be to just take this money and build apartments, and you can bring the cost of the rent down a little bit.
That's what James was going to say.
Right. If I was Secretary of Housing and Urban Development for the United States, so Scott Turner, if you're watching, I think that's his name, right? The Secretary of...
You want this guy to be watching, and then you don't even get his name right?
I think that's his name.
That's not a good look for your interview.
Yeah. But here's what I would suggest. You've got money in the federal government to give for projects. In every big city, fund a different project, right? And then let's give it 5 years, and then let's see what's working the best. Because I can agree that spending money in itself isn't going to solve the problem, but some strategies are going to work better than other strategies. And I think that's really what we just need to find. And we could sit around and argue theoretically about what's going to be the best solution. But I think we just need to have a nationwide experiment, because homelessness is a big issue, especially in cities where supply and demand has made it to where it's just too expensive to live. So,
yeah, I think, you hit the nail on the head that the way cheaper to just house people. And like you said earlier, the categories you broke them down into, criminals, the mentally ill, and then people who legitimately need help. We'll use those categories for now. It's fine. But for the mass, I think the vast majority of people fall into the category of they need help. They just need help, and putting people in a home moves them along that journey. You talk about a nationwide experiment. So I didn't find articles before this. I think it was several years ago. One of the larger cities in Utah did a pilot program like this, where they just housed people who were homeless, and they saw. Oh man, I'm trying to pull numbers from an article I read 3 years ago.
You can say a lot or a little. That's fine.
Yeah, it was over 50% of those people a year later were no longer in the housing that the government had provided. They had gotten back on their feet, moved forward in life, and moved into their own place.
Yeah,
and so especially at the cost of $81,000 per person in aggregate across all the city services.
That's a lot of money.
It is way cheaper just to, now in New York City, building housing is a whole thing. But it is just way, and actually this article, at the very end of this article, gets at some people in the homeless services community in New York are advocating just go fix up some of the
projects.
Some of the urban development housing and just stick those people in them, because we're going to get way more, from a purely capitalist perspective or whatever, the government's going to get way more bang from its buck just putting these people in a place to live, even if you account for people who are going to destroy a place or whatever. The government's going to come out way ahead if we just put people in homes.
Yeah, there is another story in California. If you Google Ramada Inn, Los Angeles, it will come right up, because for 4 years this was a place where they temporarily put a lot of homeless folks, in a Ramada Inn. And then finally they're like, why don't we just buy the Ramada Inn? Yeah. That would be cheaper. And they paid a contractor to come up with plans, and they don't even have their plans, permits done yet. 4 years later. And so there are people in the neighborhood who are going, what is happening? So Houston has a housing first policy, right? Yeah. Which basically says if you get someone in a shelter, then they can get other services provided. They can, get an ID. They can have a closet to put clothes in, to get a job interview, et cetera, which, for a lot of people, I'm sure is very helpful. Unfortunately, some of those people, it takes a lot to actually maintain a house. I don't know that we might take that for granted, but you have to be able to pay bills on time. You have to be able to manage a checkbook. You have to be able to keep a job. Even if you don't have a job, you have to be able to manage money. You don't spend it all, on something you ought not to be spending it on. And, so you save some to pay for the, whatever bill that you have to pay, et cetera. So I don't know. I don't want to be black pill about this, but I would say this. I don't. I like the experiment idea. San Antonio has a pretty successful, a thing that we're trying to emulate. Like Houston's trying to. They've just bought something on emancipation, and it's a housing first, like no questions asked. We want to get you off the street. The question always comes down to will. Do we have the will as a community, as a city, to basically not be so empathetic towards people with problems that we won't discipline them or constrain them for the good of others?
Well, this came up in the debate because he was talking about a place in Austin that's, and he was saying it's so idyllic and wonderful. Excuse me. It's just all these acres and all this housing and I don't know, it's like farm and all this kind of stuff. And that you can come and you can stay basically a lifetime. But you don't have to be clean. You don't have to be sober. You don't have to, there's no rules. And I remember you kind of pushing back on that. And I think that's partly where we get ourselves into trouble, is figuring out you don't want to turn homeless people into children that you're wagging your finger at and being like, now these are your rules and you can't do this and you can't do that. But on the other side of it, if it's just a free for all, then you have people that are going to just stay on drugs and now they have a free place to stay. And so that's, I think, where this gets very tricky, is in that in between zone of there are some rules like, hey, we're going to build this, we're going to, fix up the projects and you can live here, but you have to take a urine test once a month or whatever the thing is. I don't know what all the answers are. I'm not an expert.
So now I'll be the one who plays devil's advocate and say, is it worse for society if we have those people who don't want to get clean or whatever in a government provided house? Or is it worse for society for them to be on the streets doing that?
Is there a third option where they can be in some kind of institution?
I think Evan wanted to put them in prison.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe.
If we have the political will in this country to do so, sure. But we don't fund mental health adequately.
Yes.
We also, Houston is actually a great example of this. Houston has almost no building codes, so you can actually build housing in Houston wherever it makes sense and is cheap too. But in vast portions of the U.S., it's incredibly. It goes back to the story you just shared about California. In vast portions of the country, it's incredibly difficult to build not even housing for homeless people or homeless citizens, just houses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look at the Palisades.
Right.
Like can't build a single house like in 2 years since those fires. I will tell you that within a baseball throw of this room right here is a place that cost about $250,000 per efficiency apartment.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of money, and 149 people have a place to sleep at night, some of which I know very well, and I'm very happy for that. But there are strict guidelines. It's a Catholic charity, location, and sobriety is expected, good behavior is expected, maintaining the property is expected. So they're like high level people, like on the cusp of surviving on their own, but they probably need a little bit of a hand up. But there are people, and this is where like my more like liberal or leftist, interlocutors or friends, like this is like our fundamental disagreement. Like there are people who just, they do not want to be, have any authority over them. They don't. They're not going to listen to the rules. They don't want to break. They're going to break the rules. And so what do you do to people who break the rules, who violate our social contract? And I also believe that, and this was part of our death penalty debate, like writ large, that you can privilege certain people in a society over other people. You can just do that. Like that's just a thing you can do. And tax-paying, law-abiding citizens get the privileges. That's how I feel. I know it's crazy. I know it sounds, heartless. I don't care anymore at this point. But it feels like, especially in like big urban areas, it's the exact opposite. That law-abiding taxpayers are totally taken for granted. They have to fund all of this. I mean, this is taxpayer money. Taxpayers are funding $81,000 per person, which, by the way,
it's more than most taxpayers make.
Yeah. And so literally you're putting the burden on the taxpayer, and it's going to end up with a doom loop problem where to pay for this sort of service, which there is a lot of grift in, you end up having to tax more people. You have to have a millionaire's tax or a billionaire's tax like they're trying in Seattle, which is illegal, which is why the CEO of Starbucks just moved to Florida, which is why Mark Zuckerberg lives in Florida, which is why Elon Musk moved out of California, and on and on and on. There's not going to be enough money to tax to fund all of this, so you're going to create a doom loop problem where you're going to get more poverty, more homelessness. You can't solve the problem. There's no more money. You're already, California is already bankrupt. And so you just get more of the problem, and because the problem is worse, nobody wants to be there anymore. Like, why would anybody want to be in San Francisco right now? Did you see what happened to the mayor? His bodyguard, like, literally got beat up by a homeless guy the other day. So it's like why would anybody want to be in these cities? So people move out, tax base goes away, fewer police officers, crime gets worse, homelessness gets worse. Fewer people want to live there, less tax base, less services, and it gets worse and worse and worse. You're either getting better or you're getting worse as a municipality. And unfortunately, Houston is like trying to figure out like if we're going to get better or worse. I think the current mayor actually is trying really hard, but he comes up against special interests that I'm sorry, they prioritize and privilege the homeless over the taxpayer. That's how I feel.
Is this where we pivot to my UBI hobby horse, or do we need to leave that for its own?
Universal basic income.
Do we need to leave that for its own?
Is AI going to make that possible, you think?
Well, I mean, I think so. Someone who uses AI every day at work, I think the more interesting societal question around AI, and I know you guys touched on it last week, is what happens in government and to society and to people and the dignity of work and how they provide for themselves if the AI apocalypse comes and manual labor, even not even manual labor, a lot of white class work just goes away.
Well, I have a solution to that. It was actually in the last episode. We're going to go with the gigantic wire cutters to these data centers, and we're going to sabotage them, and we're going to help you keep your job.
I do not disagree.
I mean,
don't tell my boss.
Well, Cody, maybe you get the last word here. Speaking of labor.
Yeah, so like I'm a nerd, and labor policy and environmental policy are like special things that I pay a lot of attention to. And so I don't know if anybody's been keeping up with the Department of Labor, but the labor secretary, it's kind of wild. She's been accused of drinking alcohol at work, having an affair with a subordinate, staff forced to run personal errands for her. She took staff to a strip club on an official trip.
Good grief.
Her husband was going by to see her a lot, and he got accused of sexually assaulting many of the people, so he's been banned from the building. And all of these things are causing havoc in the labor department. With that, they've fallen behind on a lot of their investigations. And this is what, really concerns me probably more, is that you've got people who have real issues where they've been wronged by their employers and, employers mistreating employees, and the labor department's just in too much chaos to deal with it. In the meantime, the only thing that they really seem to be fighting for is to try to do away with a Biden era policy that said that, construction workers, when it goes above, I think, 95 degrees, must have a water break every hour, and they're trying to do away with that. So that's the labor department. I'm hoping that...
I hear no cynicism in your voice whatsoever.
No, I'm hoping Trump will get rid of her, but he's done that with somebody else I didn't like recently, so who knows? We'll see what happens.
Chrissy Nome?
Yes.
I was about to say, did the labor secretary fire the pilot for leaving her blanket on the wrong plane? I mean, this is going to be slightly cynical, which I think is against the point of this show. Anyways, but,
you just have to bring it around at the end. You can be cynical.
Okay, I'll work to bring it around at the end. I mean, while this level of dysfunction is unique at any government agency, Republican or Democrat administration, I mean, it's not that. I mean, this is... The NLRB and the Labor Relations Board and the Department of Labor always goes in this cycle. Yeah. If a Republican's in control of the White House, then the NLRB becomes very pro-business, very anti-union, very anti-worker. And when the Democratic administration comes in, it flips back the other way around. I mean, we had in the Biden administration, the NLRB, the general counsel for the NLRB was, issuing opinions about college athletes being able to unionize, right? So, I mean, we just get, you get the opposite extremes of the spectrum, particularly in the labor relations board, depending on the administration. So I see this as like
par for the course,
kind of a shrug. Yeah, just this is the sort of thing that sort of swings back and forth depending on which party's in power.
Yeah,
but Evan keeps trying to convince me that the Republican Party is the party of the working man who's fighting to make sure working people get a fair shake.
Tariffs, baby, going to protect the American worker. We had a whole episode about that. Ken and my friend Brian, or they're both my friends, but debated on basically free trade versus fair trade, and so the argument in favor of the tariff. Which, by the way, I'm watching. I won't go there. Okay. The argument in favor of the tariff is in part it protects American workers, right? And whether that's true or not, but that's I think the goal, and that's why like a lot of the union bosses have come out in favor of Trump. The big one, what's his name?
We talked about that ages ago.
Yeah, the Teamsters guy. Yeah. So he's as pro-Trump as Teamsters can be. He officially, I don't think he endorsed, but it was
he did want to fight the incoming head of ICE or that
was 2 years
Homeland
ago.
Security.
Mark Wayne Mullen. Yeah, yes. They were going to have fisticuffs right there on the Senate floor, which would have been pretty cool.
But Bernie told him not to. So.
Yeah. Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Wayne Mullen likes to fight, so that's.
Well, he's a USC guy. Yeah. No, I hear you. Well, I'm not going to sit here and defend like the Labor Department or anything like that. But I will say that I do think that Trump does relate to builders and working men and tradesmen and things like that. I don't think he's just a billionaire who's above it all. But that's fair.
I think the Republicans since George Bush have done a good job of winning working class people on cultural issues and saying those educated liberals look down and laugh at you. And I think the Republicans have done a good job while stealing all the money out of the working people's pocket.
How do you really feel?
I don't know. I just did my taxes. I'm getting a refund, so I don't know.
There you go.
Yeah, and I think if y'all have done your taxes, you might be finding one too, thanks to the big beautiful bill.
I got to pay $250.
Oh man, okay. Well,
I haven't done my taxes yet. So.
Yeah. Well, you got about a month, so you're good.
But why don't they want to give them a water break every hour?
I'm not really sure why the reason is. I know that it all started with Austin passed a law requiring it. And then the state of Texas did away with it and said, no, a city can't do that. So then the federal government said, no, everybody, the states have to, so there's been this kind of battle.
So it's more like who's making the rules, not so much like, no, you can't have water or.
Perhaps, or maybe it's just they don't want businesses to have to follow another regulation. I'm not really sure that the reason is.
Goodness.
But I think they should.
That made me thirsty just listening to it.
Yeah. Regulations can be kind of out of control. This was the big case of the Supreme Court case with the Maine fishermen. I think, I'm pretty sure the conservatives won that one. And it was in addition to the Chevron deference case, if I'm not mistaken. Those were the two that basically have opened up possibilities of mass deregulation. And basically calling into question the constitutionality of a lot of the three-letter agencies and a lot of the regulatory agencies and things like that. So, what we call the deep state, so some of us are pretty happy about some of that, but
I think there's good regulations and bad regulations. There's regulations that were good 50 years ago, but now they're just red tape. And, I think we need to take that. Not all regulations are good. Not all are bad. Let's figure out, let's figure it out.
Gotcha.
Can I do something unorthodox and go back? I realized that we left one of my articles and I didn't say what I wanted to say at the very end of it.
Oh.
But it's white pills, so maybe it'll be a good way to close it out.
There we go.
The aliens thing. I'm not obsessed with aliens, guys, or drugs. But I was just sitting there thinking, well, what's the reverse of this? If you want to kind of go into your mind or meet with entities to learn from them, to gain wisdom, maybe to gain peace, you can do that without paying for drugs. And it's called prayer. You can pray anytime you want, right now, when you finish this podcast. And you can talk to the creator of the universe. And I think sometimes we forget that because, especially as Christians, if we're going to church every week and we're like, now it's time to pray. Let's pray before the meal. But prayer it's wild. That's a wild thing that we get to go straight to the source, the creator of the universe, the creator of you, the person that knows you better than you know yourself, the person who owns you in a crass way of putting it, but it's true. who runs the world, who's in charge of everything, who saved you, who rescued you from death, from hell, from all these things. You get to talk to that person anytime you want. And I mean, I'm not just being crass and silly to say it's free, but none of the detriment of taking drugs happens. And you don't have to be afraid that, I mean, aliens could be scary if they don't have our best interest in mind. I don't think it is aliens. Demons never have your best interest in mind. And so you start playing with fire there. You're never playing with fire when you talk to your Savior because he loves you enough to have saved you. So pray. That's my white pill.
That's a good one. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up. Do you want people to find you or contact you?
We always ask at the end, where can people find you?
Probably people can best find me at the TC Jester Disc Golf Course. I'm also on Blue Sky.
Okay.
Not on X anymore. Sorry.
Oh, we'll give your handle or?
Oh, yeah. JR Europe. You'll mostly see retweets about college sports.
So. Oh, okay. Cool.
Right. And he goes to our church. So if you ever come to Oak Forest Anglican, you can come sit by us. We sit in the same section. It's the cool section, basically.
Yeah. We sing good together.
Yeah, we harmonize. Right. It's fun.
Cool. I'm on TikTok, Cody Pogue, CODYPOGUE.
I can't believe TikTok's still going. I keep thinking it's going to get abolished or sold or whatever. And then
it's got more commercials than it used to. So it's a disappointment.
Trump got a big kickback this week.
Oh, that's not a good look.
Didn't the American people get a kickback?
No, he did.
Yeah.
Bring that article to the next one.
Yes.
I'm Sarah Stone Ulrich. You can find me at our Theology by the Pint events or on our theologybythepint.org website.
And I'm Evan. I'm at First Lutheran, flhouston.org. Check out our YouTube channel, subscribe, watch all the debates we're trying to do.
Oh, and we have an event coming up. April 14th is our next one. It's called Once Saved, Always Saved, ? About how salvation works. How do you know if you're saved? Can you lose your salvation? Is salvation just about going to heaven? Should be pretty good. You should come to that.
Cool. Until next time, we encourage you to question freely, think deeply, and disagree as needed.